welcome to the family, son.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at the AWE expansion for Control, and I think a good starting point would be a quick rundown of the base game, just in case you haven't played it and you're only here for the Alan Wake stuff. Knowing some of the story and lore is pretty much essential for understanding what happens in the DLC, and it will definitely help you if you're going to go into Alan Wake 2. So with that said, let's get into it. Control is the story of Jessie Faden and her search for her missing brother Dylan. But she's not alone in this task. She has something inside of her, an entity known as Polaris. And Polaris manifests as a kaleidoscopic vision that leads her to the doors of the Federal Bureau of Control, or FBC for short. She enters the building only to find it seemingly empty, but after searching for a short while she meets the janitor, Artie, an eccentric Finnish man who tells her that she must be here for the job of janitor's assistant and sends her back the way that she came, only for there to be a previously non-existent elevator waiting for her. She rides the elevator to higher levels, but while searching she hears a gunshot in the distance. And moving to investigate, she finds the director of the FBC, Zachariah Trench, dead in his office. He appears to be the victim of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Jessie reaches for his gun, which we'll come to know as the service weapon, but as soon as she wraps her fingers around it, she is teleported to a place known as the Astral Plane, where she's greeted by unseen entities known as the Board. They communicate to her through what appears to be garbled radio transmissions, but Jessie can understand them somehow. They inform her that she has now inherited the role of FBC director. Jessie sees a vision of a projector playing a PSA video. Dr. Casper Darling explains that the service weapon is a particularly powerful object of power, or OOP for short, and the objects of power can either be created by or create AWEs, altered world events, which he refers to as intrusions upon the perceived reality. The best and most fitting way for me to describe these terms is that the events of Alan Wake 1 are an altered world event, and that the typewriter that Alan uses is an object of power. This is the Bureau's job, to investigate, contain, and experiment on AWEs and OOPs. And these objects and instances are often referred to as being paranatural. Right, back to the story. When Jessie returns from the Astral Plane, she leaves the director's office and is greeted by the sight of 3 FBC agents levitating, bathed in an ominous red light. She's immediately bombarded by some kind of force, a frequency, something trying to bury itself into her mind. But with the aid of Polaris, she manages to fight off what we come to know as the hiss and dispels it from her mind. At this point, the 3 FBC operatives drop to the ground and attack her. She swiftly takes them out using the service weapon and continues to investigate the FBC offices. One thing to note that can be quite hard to hear sometimes is that the hiss are chanting something. Garbled sentences such as, "You are a worm through time, the thunder song distorts you, baby, 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 yeah, orange peel." Just hold on to that because it will become important later. Whilst in Central Executive, Jessie fights more hiss and gets a strange vision of Director Trench, leading her to cleanse a control point, making the area safe for the remaining FBC staff who aren't infected to come out from hiding. Emily Pope, an FBC research assistant, explains that the hiss have taken over the entire FBC, and after seeing Jessie cleanse the control point, she asks if she'll try and cleanse one of the hiss-infected FBC agents. This doesn't work, and it seems that once you've been infected, there's no way to come back. From here, Jessie is sent to find the hotline, an object of power that will allow her to communicate with different realities. Okay, so that's about as far as I'm going to go with the beat-by-beat story for the base game. From this point, Jessie must cleanse the house of the hiss, collect objects of power that grant her special abilities such as telekinesis, which is known as launch in this game, and of course look for her brother. Along the way, Jessie's helped by several of her now employees and visits many locations in the FBC building, which we now know is called the Oldest House. Arguably, the most important place that Jessie visits is the Ocean View Motel and Casino. It's a threshold that connects many places and only responds to rituals, but we'll see its significance later. Right, let's get into the DLC. Here's AWE. AWE starts with Jessie receiving a vision via the hotline of Alan Wake typing away in the darkness. He seems to be using his uncanny ability to shape Jessie's story. In the main elevator from Central Executive, he seems to have manifested a new button, a button marked Investigation Sector. Jessie seems to trust Alan, sensing that he's far away and needs help. She senses a drowning man, so she presses the button and heads to the investigation sector. The elevator doors slowly open, exposing a dark foyer. The lights blink to life, greeting Jessie with the view of an empty office. It appears to have been abandoned in a hurry and left in disorder. Jessie restores the power to a security checkpoint and uses the light switch to enter the Ocean View Motel. Upon arrival, she hears talking behind a slightly ajar door that's marked with a spiral. It's Alan Wake. He seems confused. His memory's failing him, but he says that it seems familiar. The camera pans into the room and we see him talking to someone that looks just like him, only less disheveled. This doppelganger introduces himself as Thomas Zane. He tells Alan that he isn't a poet or a diver. He's a filmmaker, an auteur. Those were just characters, just roles that he played in his films. Zane fixes Alan a drink. He still seems very confused, but as he takes a swig, he begins to remember his predicament. The words "endless darkness" and "nothing holds still" spill from his lips. And it's here where Zane explains that they've been working together to escape the dark place. Alan's been writing a way out and they're very close. Of course, Alan has no memory of this, but one memory does shoot back into his mind. He remembers Mr. Scratch. He knows that he's out there and that he's dangerous. Zane nonchalantly waves this away and tells him not to worry about it, that he's handling it. Alan flares into a rage and smashes his glass on the floor. The camera pans back out of the room and the door slams shut, leaving Jessie standing there clearly confused by what she's seen. She solves the ritual that will help her traverse the Ocean View Motel and receives another vision of Wake, this one more like the first. Alan, writing, his monologue bleeding into Jessie's reality. He speaks of Dr. Emil Hartman being devoured by hungry darkness, becoming the thing that had been Hartman, escaping and killing everyone it could, before being found by something else, a resonance. The thing that had been Hartman is corrupted by the hiss, becoming something else. Jessie leaves the Ocean View Motel via the light switch, and the giant stone door blocking the path forward opens, leading the way deeper into the oldest house. And following a brief platforming section, Jessie arrives at the investigation sector. Something's definitely not right here, even for the oldest house. Objects here seem to be spiraling and replicating. And of course it doesn't take long for the hiss to attack Jessie, but this is nothing she hasn't dealt with before and quickly dispatches them. Travelling further into the investigation sector, Jessie finds her path blocked. The house has shifted. She finds an alternate route, but the door is covered in concentrated darkness, so she uses a nearby emergency light to burn it away, like in Alan Wake. She proceeds up some stairs into a maintenance tunnel, and that's when she hears it. The thing that had been Hartman. It utters,
"Baby, baby, baby, yeah. Orange peel."
Jessie finds her way into the operations centre. It's dark, there's no power, and she gets another vision of Alan at the typewriter. He refers to Hartman as the third thing, the sound made darker and the darkness made louder. He says he's stretched, like a worm through time. She restores the power to the room and is once again attacked by the hiss. After she finishes them off, she explores the area and finds some audio logs by Dr. Emil Hartman. It's his own investigation into the darkness. He discusses Thomas Zane, the Anderson brothers, and Rudolph Lane as having involvements with the darkness, and perhaps even creating it. And I think now's a good time to explain what happened to Dr. Hartman following the events of Alan Wake 1, because you find out all this information from audio logs and documents, and I don't intend to go through every single one of those to explain the story, so I'll just put all the information here. Following the Bright Falls AWE, the FBC arrested and detained Dr. Hartman. They seized all of his research and his lodge and interrogated him. The FBC released Hartman, considering him to be a low-level threat, and after he'd lost everything, a desperate Hartman dived into Cauldron Lake, where he was taken by the darkness and then subsequently recaptured by the FBC, and that's where he's been ever since. Okay, now we're up to date, let's get back to Jessie. She pushes further into the investigation sector and finds herself in active investigations, where she attempts to take a cargo elevator to a higher floor before coming face to face with the third thing. Dr. Emil Hartman, twisted and stretched, broken neck and splayed ribs torn through his back. Jesse uses the floodlights in the area to attack Hartman, causing him to have to make an escape through a ventilation tunnel as the light burns away at his twisted form. Jesse finds one more important piece of information in this room. It's a document detailing Alice Wake visiting the FBC regarding her husband's disappearance. This visit from Alice causes two things to happen. Firstly, her presence seems to be sensed by Hartman, and this is when he originally escaped from his containment. And secondly, a new door seems to have manifested inside the Ocean View Motel, a door with a spiral symbol. Jesse boards the elevator and is shocked to hear someone speaking to her over the PA. It's Frederick Langston, the supervisor of the Panopticon, the FBC's containment facility. The conversation's one-sided until Jesse can find an intercom, but Langston seems very worried that we've seen Hartman and really wishes that Jesse didn't unseal the sector. He gives Jesse some advice about using lights to hurt Hartman, maybe even Christmas lights.
Protection, man!
And opens the way to two of the three investigation sites that we can see on this floor, the Fra Mauro AWE and the Eagle Limited AWE, leaving only the Bright Falls sector sealed. Okay, before we move on, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to anyone watching. This video almost killed me. I lost all the footage to a corrupted thumb drive. I played the DLC 3 times to get everything I needed, all whilst having the worst chest infection I've ever had. So if you found any joy in this video whatsoever, please like and subscribe, and especially leave me a comment. I really love reading them. Right, back to it. Jesse heads towards the Fra Mauro AWE, a section of the oldest house where the FBC were investigating an incident in which an entity stowed aboard the Apollo 14 lunar module and returned to Earth disguised as an extravehicular mobility unit, in short, a spacesuit. After taking another elevator, Jesse forces her way into the sector and is of course immediately surrounded by Hiss, but she takes them out with minimal effort and uses the lights to once again burn away the darkness that's blocking the security checkpoint. She fights off more Hiss and restores power to an elevator shaft, allowing her to drop lower into the sector, where she has to solve an environmental puzzle using a light mounted on top of a train car, allowing her to get to lower access. But once she makes it there, in a darkened corridor, the thing that had been Hartman is waiting for her. And having no means to fight the monstrosity, Jesse flees, making her escape by smashing through a wall, where she's able to restore power to the lights, burn away the darkness, and make her way further into the sector. She soon finds herself at a railway swing bridge where she once again has to fight off waves of Hiss and destroy corrupted Hiss nodes that are blocking the gears, preventing the bridge from moving. As she pushes her way deeper through the twisted hallways of the oldest house, she once again comes face to face with Hartman, this time luckily from a safe distance. She notes that whatever's inside Hartman isn't mixing well with the Hiss corruption. She fights her way through the AWE loading bay and through some service tunnels before finally reaching the Fra Mauro AWE, which is a recreation of the Apollo 14 lunar module, where she's once again greeted by the twisted form of the third thing. He pounds the ground with his fist, causing almost all the lights to explode, plunging the room into darkness. Jesse uses the remaining lights and her keen mind to restore the power to the observation deck, allowing her to turn on the main floodlights, causing Hartman to flee once more as the illumination burns at his flesh, and Jesse gives chase, leading her to the Eagle Limited AWE. This is where the FBC were investigating an incident in which some para-criminals derailed a train in order to make their own AWE, which resulted in one of the train carts becoming an altered item, essentially becoming a ghost train. Once again, Jesse takes an elevator up and finds herself in front of another railway swing bridge, where she has to fight off increasing numbers of Hiss-corrupted FBC soldiers, before making her way down some stairs into a maintenance area full of air conditioning units and power generators, where she once again sees the thing that had been Hartman attacking a Hiss-corrupted agent. Jesse decides to push on quickly but finds her path blocked by a security shutter with no power. Knowing just what to do, Jesse gets herself an emergency light and burns away some darkness, allowing her to pick up a power module and get that shutter moving. But once she gets on the other side, she finds herself fighting for her life once more. The Hiss has come in full force this time, and she utilizes some FBC soldiers to level out the playing field. And after overcoming the odds and pushing the Hiss back, she climbs up the bridge and smashes through some windows into a darkened office. There seems to be far more of the concentrated darkness here, as if the corruption is spreading through the sector. Jesse burns it all away as she moves through the inky black corridors. She soon finds herself in another generator room solving another power puzzle, and this grants her access to the now hiss-infested service tunnels and finally leads to the Eagle Limited AWE. The room's almost completely bathed in ominous darkness, but there's no sign of Hartman yet. The train from the paracriminal attack is suspended from the ceiling, and as Jessie tries to move the train cart from one side of the room to the other using a series of control panels littered around, she's ambushed by both Hartman and the Hiss Corrupted. She does her best to simultaneously fight off the Hiss and dodge Hartman's devastating attacks. She's finally successful at moving the train car and is able to turn on the main floodlights, causing Hartman to once again flee the agony that is weaponized luminescence. This time it seems like the oldest house is responding to him. It shifts and creates him a tunnel out of the room. Jessie pursues the third thing through the warped hallways of the oldest house before finding herself once again enveloped in darkness in the AWE transit area. Jessie needs to find a way to restore power to the room, but it's not gonna be easy. Both the Hiss and the thing that had been Hartman are stalking her, and all 4 power nodes that she needs to restore lights to the area are hidden behind corrupted Hiss nodes in different corners of the room. Once again, Jessie fights with all she's got and is ultimately victorious. Hartman escapes via an access hatch on the platform as the light scorches away at his distorted form. With the third thing steadily running out of places to hide, Jessie heads back to active investigations, where Langston informs her that Hartman has ripped his way into the Bright Falls AWE. As Jessie treads on the heels of the monstrosity, she's greeted with another hotline call from Alan. He says the darkness wants to hide the past to make him lose his way. He trusts what he reads on the pages. He wrote them for a reason. Cut through the reality, tear it apart and rewrite it. They are drawn to the mystery. Jessie boards the elevator down to the Bright Falls AWE but finds the lift shaft blocked by darkness and the Hiss. She swiftly deals with this small roadblock and carries on the elevator. Once she's on the lower floor, she finds the light switch and enters the Ocean View Motel, where once again she hears Alan's voice coming from behind the spiral door. He sounds desperate. He says, "I had a plan. I know it. I've forgotten." The camera pans inside the room and we see Alan standing on his own, staring at a spiral painted on the wall. He says he's coming. "I've got to get out of here. Dive deeper." And then we get flashes of Alan's face screaming. The camera pulls out of the room and the door slams once again, and Jessie states that whatever is going on, he needs help. Without a minute to lose, Jessie uses some FBC projectors to burn away the darkness in the Ocean View Motel, allowing her to solve the ritual and make her way to the Bright Falls AWE. But before Jessie gets a chance to leave, she gets one more hotline call from Alan. He says, "Going mad. Wake had to escape. Write his escape. Wake needed a hero. A hero needed a crisis. For the part in the story about the government agency, Wake needed something special. Something to convey an alien force mimicking human intelligence." He goes on to say that he cut up words and sentences and put them in a shoebox. Pulling them out, he made a Dadaist poem. Orange peel, you are home, insane. So now we know that Alan Wake wrote the Hiss incantation and may even be directly responsible for what happened in Control. Following that revelation, Jessie pushes on to the Bright Falls AWE. It's a recreation of Dr. Hartman's lodge, and this is where the final battle will take place. But before we get into that, I just want to show one document that you can find in this arena. It describes how Alice Wake has been getting late night visitations from somebody who looks like Alan, and how as a photographer she set up an automatic camera and managed to capture a photo of this visitor, and that photo accompanies this document. It looks like Alan, but of course we know it's Mr. Scratch. Right, with that out of the way, let's get back to the finale. Jessie drops down to the representation of Hartman's lodge, ready for the final battle. She replaces some more power nodes and flips the main switch, bathing the room in light. And with nowhere left to run, the third thing must stand his ground. But with Jessie's superior agility and combat skills, the thing that had been Hartman doesn't stand much of a chance. The hulking monstrosity tries one last-ditch effort to plunge the room into darkness to gain the upper hand. But with no escape route for Hartman, Jessie restores the power one final time, burning away the last vestiges of darkness engulfing the third thing, allowing Jessie to finally be victorious over this monster, leaving Dr. Hartman nothing but a scorched, broken corpse. We fade to a cutscene where Jesse offers Langston a promotion to head of investigations. Just as he's declining the offer, something comes through on his terminal. It's an AWE report from Bright Falls. He says it must be a glitch because it's dated a couple of years in the future. And on top of that, with lockdown in place, there shouldn't be any incoming signals at all. Jesse postulates that maybe it started before they went into lockdown and asks Langston if there's any agents on site. Langston informs Jesse that Agent Estevez is the field agent in charge of monitoring and that she should be there to let her know if the situation's gone through any changes. We cut to the spiral door and the camera pans through it once more into the darkness. We get strange flashes of images, including a map of Watery and Bright Falls. As Alan says, things set into motion. If the alarm's true, then so is the reason for the alarm. The effect must follow the cause. It's happening again. A return. We see more flashes, including Scratch's face, a reflected owl, and an arm that shows signs of being restrained. We hear a musical motif from Alan Wake, and he says,
"You have been warned."
And that's it, that's the end of AWE, the credits roll, and we're all done here. Thank you so much if you've made it to this part of the video. Like and subscribe, please leave me a comment, I respond to all of them, and I'll see you on the next video.